In the dark world of missing persons, some secrets are darker than we could ever imagine. Kyoka Saito, a 13-year-old girl with big, clear eyes and a smile that was always on her face. She lived with her parents in a small apartment in Saitama Prefecture, Japan. As a model student polite to everyone, Kyoka was loved by her teachers and classmates. However, on a fateful day in 2014, her peaceful life was completely turned upside down. After the familiar school bell rang, Kyoka walked out of school and then disappeared without a trace, leaving behind only a mysterious note. On the evening of March 10, 2014, at 7:00 p.m., when Kyoka's father returned home, he was expecting to see his daughter's bright smile greeting him. But instead, the house was eerily silent, with only the sound of his wife sobbing on the sofa. After asking, he found out that his daughter had gone missing on her way home from school. At the same time, his wife found a note in the mailbox. It read, "I need a break from the family and school for a while. I'm going to a friend's house, please don't look for me." At first, Kyoka's parents suspected it might be a prank by the neighborhood kids. But after careful inspection, they both recognized that it was their daughter's handwriting. They immediately reported it to the police and searched the nearby streets and train stations, but the whole night passed without any results. Since Kyoka was only 13 and not yet a legal adult, and because her identification and wallet were found at home, her parents believed she couldn't have gone far. The family was left waiting, anxiously filled with uncertainty and worry. Meanwhile, Japanese police searched everywhere, checking the school, Kyoka's apartment, and the surveillance footage around the area, but found no trace of her. The news of a missing minor quickly attracted public attention in Saitama Prefecture. People began to speculate that it might be a kidnapping and suspected that Kyoka's family might have enemies. However, her parents denied this. They had stable jobs, were respectful toward others, had no debts or financial issues, so they couldn't understand why their daughter had suddenly disappeared. The day after their daughter went missing, another shocking event occurred. Kyoka's father received a handwritten letter from her. Upon checking the mailbox, he saw that the note said, "Don't look for me anymore, I won't be coming back for a while." Kyoka's father immediately contacted the Saitama police and sent the letter to a handwriting expert to analyze it, hoping to find some clue. Unfortunately, the police were only able to confirm that the letter was indeed written by Kyoka through handwriting analysis, but they had no idea where the letter had been sent from since it had no postal mark. The hope of finding their daughter soon turned to disappointment. In addition to contacting the police, Kyoka's parents distributed flyers across Saitama, but there was still no progress. It wasn't until 2 years later that a phone call changed everything. Time passed quickly, and in 2016, when Kyoka's disappearance had faded into obscurity, even her father was starting to lose hope. But then, a shocking piece of news came to light. On the afternoon of February 27th, the hotline of the Nakano Police Department in Tokyo received an unusual call. The caller, a young girl, sounded scared and her voice was trembling. She said that she had been kidnapped and held captive by a man for 2 years, and that she had managed to escape when he stepped out. She begged the police to come to her rescue, providing her current location as Nakano Station, Tokyo. The police immediately sent officers to the station to investigate. The case of Saito's disappearance had caused a stir in the local community for 2 years, and many people had previously called the police station from public phones claiming they had seen the girl, though most turned out to be malicious pranks. So when the officers first encountered Saito, they were skeptical. It wasn't until she showed them a faded student ID card with the name Saito Kyoka written on it that they realized this was indeed the missing 13-year-old girl who had vanished 2 years ago. Immediately, the police rushed her to the hospital for a health checkup and notified her parents, who had been anxiously waiting for her return for the past 2 years. When they saw their daughter at the hospital, Saito's family broke down in tears and embraced her. Everyone was curious as to why Saito had suddenly disappeared 2 years prior, what she had gone through during that time, and what the intentions of the man who had kidnapped her were. It turned out that Saito's disappearance was closely tied to a university student with an excellent academic record. According to Saito's account, she had been held captive for 2 years by a college student named Kabu Terauchi. Terauchi, around 21 years old at the time of the incident, came from a wealthy family in Ikeda, Osaka. From a young age, he dreamed of becoming a pilot. His grandfather was a famous university professor, and his father ran a security surveillance company. Terauchi was always a model student, diligent and intelligent. He attended prestigious middle and high schools in Osaka, and was even a class president. His teachers described him as a bright young man. After graduating high school, he was accepted into the prestigious Chiba University in Japan, majoring in information technology. At university, Terauchi followed the rules and actively participated in group activities. Later, he took a year off during his 3rd year to go to Canada to study English and get a small aircraft pilot's license. To his friends and colleagues, Terauchi was a wealthy young man who constantly strived to improve himself. So why did a bright young man with such a promising future turn into a kidnapper? Going back to March 2014, before Saito's disappearance, Terauchi had been plotting something far darker. He intended to find a target among the high school students in Saitama Prefecture to conduct a twisted experiment on human observation and brainwashing using the psychological knowledge he had gained at university. Terauchi began observing the emotions and dismissal times of various students. Eventually, he chose Saito, one of the most approachable students, as his target for the experiment. Terauchi spent a long time observing the area near Saito's home. He discovered the girl's name on a flower pot and saw her umbrella by the door, while also becoming familiar with her family's daily routines. Finally, on March 10th, Terauchi decided to execute his plan. He drove to her school, got out of the car, and approached Saito as she was leaving. With a serious expression, Terauchi lied to Saito, claiming that her parents were about to divorce and had asked him to take care of her, suggesting that she stay with him for a while. Since Terauchi knew Saito's name and shared accurate details about her family, Saito, who was only 13 and naive at the time, did not doubt his words and got into the car. After successfully deceiving Saito, Terauchi's attitude suddenly changed. He relentlessly fed Saito the lie that her parents were about to leave Japan and didn't want to take her with them. He demanded that Saito blindfold herself and handed her a phone playing an audio recording processed with a voice about organ trafficking in an attempt to threaten her. The young girl, terrified, dared not speak a word. Then Terauchi went on to tell her that no one in the world cared about her, that he was the only one she could rely on. He added, "Actually, your parents aren't getting divorced. Your father owes a lot of money and they were planning to sell your organs for money. But I came here to protect you." In the end, Saito, naive and innocent, believed his words and became a pawn in his twisted experiment. Terauchi meticulously crafted his lies and continued brainwashing Saito for days to make her obedient and stay by his side. He took her to an apartment he rented near his university. The apartment was old, sparsely inhabited, and inexpensive to rent, making it the perfect place for Terauchi to carry out his crime. Once Saito was settled there, he constantly reinforced the idea that she had been abandoned by her family and had nowhere else to go, forcing her to repeat these words. Although Saito grew increasingly suspicious of Terauchi, he sweet-talked her and manipulated her into staying with him, emphasizing that the door was locked and she couldn't escape. Furthermore, since Saito had no means of communicating with the outside world, she had no idea what was happening. Terauchi even mixed crushed morning glory seeds into Saito's food, taking advantage of the hallucinogenic properties of the seeds to make her unable to distinguish between reality and illusion. After kidnapping her, Terauchi continued living a double life. By day, he attended university as usual, actively participated in academic activities, and didn't miss any classes. He also joined family gatherings regularly, so no one suspected his darker side and no one knew that he was hiding a young girl in his apartment. As for Saito, she was kept captive, fed only the food Terauchi brought her, and rarely allowed outside. However, Sometimes Terauchi took her out to buy daily essentials, always gripping her hand tightly to prevent her from running away. Terrified, Saito dared not cry for help and simply obeyed Terauchi's orders. In reality, Saito had tried to escape her confinement. Once, when Terauchi forgot to lock the door, Saito pushed it open and ran outside. She wandered alone for a while, trying to find help. At one point, she saw a mother walking with her child. Saito approached and asked if she could borrow a phone, but the woman just glanced at her coldly and said, "I'm busy, no." She then walked away. Later, Saito asked an elderly woman if she knew where there was a public phone, but the woman replied, "I don't know. Don't ask me, ask someone else." The indifference of the passers-by left Saito feeling hopeless. Once again, she abandoned the idea of asking for help and silently returned to her place of captivity. Eventually, she reached a devastating conclusion that only Terauchi cared about her, and began to try to do housework and cook for him. Thus, for 2 years, Saito's mind was completely controlled by Terauchi, and the two of them lived together as if they were a couple. But in the end, an unexpected event uncovered this absurd truth. 2 years after the kidnapping in February 2016, Terauchi and Saito had moved from Chiba to Nakano Ward, Tokyo. One day, Saito happened to use a computer that Terauchi had left behind. She watched a video interview with her parents online and was shocked to realize that they had never stopped searching for her all this time. Since Saito went missing in 2014, her parents had never given up hope of finding their daughter. Not only had they posted missing person flyers everywhere, but they also reached out to the media in Japan to search for information about their missing child. And then fate seemed to show its hand. Saito finally discovered that everything Terauchi had told her was a lie, and she made the decision to escape. At that point, Terauchi had just graduated from university and was busy looking for a job. Every day, he would tell Saito about his schedule. Saito decided to take advantage of the opportunity when Terauchi went to work early in the morning and returned late in the evening to unlock the front door and run away. The following events unfolded as previously mentioned. She went to a police station at the train station to ask for help. Saito was immediately taken to the hospital for a health checkup, and fortunately she wasn't injured and showed no signs of being harmed. The next morning, Saitama police issued a wanted notice for 23-year-old Terauchi on charges of kidnapping a minor. The Saitama police formed a search team of around 100 people to raid Terauchi's apartment in Nakano, Tokyo. They found a school uniform with Saito's name embroidered on it inside his apartment, but they also discovered that there were no locking devices on the door as Saito had described. This meant that Saito could have left at any time, but she had been brainwashed and had no idea what was really happening. Terauchi was arrested shortly afterward in Ito, Shizuoka with a head injury that he had caused himself. He told the police, "I have committed a serious crime. I am truly sorry to the victim's parents." During his trial, Terauchi tried to justify his actions. He claimed that he had intended to kidnap a young girl since he was in middle school, and when studying abroad in Canada, he read a book on brainwashing at a local library. He wanted to find someone to experiment on to control and observe their behavior. The Saito Kyoka kidnapping case rocked Japan. The media reported it relentlessly, and the public was abuzz with discussion. The outrage from society was like a violent storm that swept everything in its path, and at the center of it all was Kabu Terauchi's family. Even the perpetrator could not escape society's judgment. The online community quickly found out the identity of Terauchi's father. Ironically, he was the head of a company that specialized in providing anti-theft devices in Osaka. Now his family was tied to a criminal, the very person who had caused the crime they had spent their lives trying to prevent. Under the pressure of public opinion, Terauchi's father was forced to publicly apologize on his company's website. "As a company that specializes in crime prevention, but a member of my family has committed a crime and caused a societal shock. I am truly sorry." That apology might not be able to ease the pain of the Saito family, but it showed the remorse of a father powerless in the face of his child's crimes. Terauchi's grandfather, a renowned university professor, only learned about his grandson's crime through news reports on TV. He was heartbroken by what Saito had endured. but couldn't understand why the grandson he loved so much could commit such a heinous crime. Terauchi's cruel actions had stolen Saito Kyoka's childhood and joy, leaving indelible scars on her mind and her family. However, justice would be served, and the criminal would pay for his crimes. So how would the law deal with Terauchi? First, Chiba University, where Terauchi had studied, quickly took action. Just 1 month after the case was uncovered, the prestigious university decided to revoke his degree, a fitting punishment for the one who had tarnished the university's reputation. However, there was still some debate in the public. Some argued that Terauchi's criminal actions should be considered separately from his academic life, but Professor of Law Naoki Oki asserted that since Terauchi committed the crime while still a student, the university's decision was entirely appropriate. Moreover, according to analyses by the Japanese media, Terauchi could have been guilty of up to 4 serious criminal charges, but under Japanese criminal law, the maximum sentence was only 7 years in prison. This information caused an outcry in the public, who feared that a light sentence wouldn't be enough to deter such behavior and would set a bad precedent for society. Furthermore, due to the need to ensure Saito's mental health, the investigation took longer than expected. The case was brought to trial in August 2017, but each time Terauchi appeared in court, his bizarre behavior and incoherent statements made people suspect he was pretending to be mentally ill to avoid responsibility. For example, he claimed he wasn't Kabu Terauchi, but a forest spirit, or spoke strange phrases in English. Due to Terauchi's abnormal reactions, the trial could not proceed smoothly, and the judge had to postpone it. A year later, in 2018, Terauchi was sentenced to 9 years in prison, but the prosecution appealed because they disagreed with the verdict. After several delays, in 2019, Terauchi was sentenced to 12 years in prison, a verdict that did not satisfy everyone, but at least it somewhat eased the pain of the Saito family and brought justice to society. Kabu Terauchi, a young man who once had a bright future and came from a wealthy family, kidnapped Saito when she was only 13 to carry out his twisted experiment, depriving her of freedom and brainwashing her for 2 years. His actions were truly horrific. However, the most surprising part for the public was that during the 2 years of captivity, Terauchi never harmed Saito. The young girl was unharmed, and after being rescued, she not only reunited with her family, but also had the chance to attend her graduation and meet her old classmates. This was indeed a stroke of luck in an otherwise tragic situation. The story of Saito Kyoka and Kabu Terauchi is a reminder of the dark corners of society where crimes can happen anytime and anywhere. But at the same time, it is also a story about the power of love, the unwavering determination of a young girl, and the relentless persistence of her parents in the journey to bring her back. Above all, it is a story about justice. Though delayed, it was ultimately served. What do you think about today's case? Feel free to leave your thoughts in the comments below to join the discussion.